not talk about only two worlds. We are saying there are any number of versions of Earth, thousands of them that exist simultaneously, millions of them that exist simultaneously. It is a misinterpretation and a misunderstanding by people that we're only talking about two different versions of Earth. There are multiple versions of Earth. There is the one that you're on now. And again, remember, you are constantly shifting through different versions of Earth billions of times per second. So there are billions of versions of Earth. The idea is that you are navigating through billions of different versions every second, going in the direction of what your strongest vibrational frequency is. That's how you navigate it. Ultimately winding up on the versions, through the versions, the multiple versions of Earth that are more and more representative of the frequency that you're giving off. So please understand that even every second, there are billions of versions of Earth. It's not just two.
Okay,
they are
thank you.
all here. They are all now, but they are separated by frequency. So as you adjust your own frequency, you gravitate and go in the direction of the versions of Earth that are more reflective of the frequency and the energy that exists within you.
Okay. This question is, can my current identity, as this person's name is Sandy, determine where a counterpart and a member of my oversoul will go? Can I decide while I'm here in physical form where a concurrent version of myself will be born and to who? Whom?
You can become aware of that, but you cannot decide that because it has already been decided in your spirit agreement, pre-birth. So any counterparts have already made an agreement with you, and you have made an agreement with them to be born in certain places, to have certain incarnational experiences that may overlap your own timeline, your own life. But the idea is that you can become aware of that, but you're not the one determining that. It's already been determined by agreement between you before this life.
Are spiritual beings like ascended masters still elevating their own consciousness, since they have a knowing they are part of all that is? At that level, or what level, is the edge of consciousness if it's constantly expanding? What is beyond that?
It never ends. Beings are always ascending. There is always more to experience. There is no beginning and there is no ending. There is nothing beyond it except more experience, more understanding, different perspectives. Remember, even the idea that humans talk about becoming one with all that is, there can still be different versions of becoming one with all that is, different versions of all that is. So it never ends. Beings are constantly accelerating, ascending, and expanding.
Okay, this person had a dream involving a blue being. She was beautiful. In this dream, I walked into the room she was sitting in, and a door next to her leading outside was open. The weather outside was chaotic, raining with winds, leaves blowing about. When I saw her sitting there, she looked at me, and I could feel in my body myself trying to calm the weather outside the door. She looked over at me, and I immediately said, "You're Lemurian." She responded by raising her arm with a smirk on her face, and the weather outside became calm. Was she an aspect of me? If not, why was she interacting with me, and why was she there showing what she did with no form of communication?
But there was a communication. She was showing you by her actions how the Lemurians were so well connected to nature, such a close offshoot from the Anunnaki, being blue tinted, most of them, that they could actually, with their own emotions, control the weather. So it's a counterpart from the same oversoul as you. and therefore you are connected in that way. And she is demonstrating to you the idea that weather is the product of the collection of the emotional vibrations of your species, that you still can be, if you are so willing, be connected that strongly to nature if you start understanding yourself like they did as nature, as an expression of nature, not that you live in nature, but that you live as nature. The Lemurians were extremely well connected to nature and often performed these kinds of feats.
Fascinating. Regarding shape-shifting, how is the process experienced by the individual doing the shifting? If the molecular structure is not changing, are they able to perform feats that characterize that animal, like flying, seeing in the dark, breathing underwater, etc.?
Yes. Again, it's not the idea that the form you start with is molecularly changing. It's the idea that you have shifted to another counterpart in another reality, a parallel reality, so that you are expressing what that counterpart energy is in its identity, be it human, be it animal, be it tree, be it rock, doesn't matter. The idea is that from the perspective of the person doing it, they contain an overall understanding of the shift. They maintain a connection to what they started out as an overview. It's like suddenly seeing from the oversoul perspective and allowing them to perceive simultaneously all the different probabilities, all the different projections, all the different extensions of the oversoul, and being able to consciously choose which one they would choose to appear as, which one they would choose to express themselves through. Very similar to the idea, by analogy, of sort of looking through different glasses, trying them on, and knowing that each time you try on a new pair, not only are you seeing a different reality, but you are expressing yourself as the being in that reality in whatever way you've chosen to. So there's an overview, like an oversoul overview for that person, maintaining the general overall perspective. And at the same time, there is the perspective and the experience of shifting to a counterpart in whatever form that counterpart may be expressing itself.
This person would like clarification about the process of how we move to a different universe when we change. If I were to see myself as me living in universe number 813, and then when I change, I'm still me from universe 813, but I've moved to universe 814. My questions are, who takes my place in universe 813? And what was in my place universe number 814 before I got there?
You are looking at this concept from a linear perspective, and that is why it seems confusing. The idea is to understand that from the level you're talking about, it's not you, the personality. The idea is that it's you, the bigger being, that is now perceiving through more of yourself. Versions of you are still in 813, while versions of you are also in 814. It's just that you're shifting your perspective, your awareness, in a way that isolates it one universe at a time, the way that you are presenting this. But you are actually experiencing your greater self through all of the universes simultaneously. So the concept of quote unquote shifting doesn't mean that you're leaving one universe and arriving in another. It means that you are simply becoming more aware of the fact that you occupy, as the greater being, all universes simultaneously and can choose how to perceive yourself and from what perspective to perceive yourself at any given moment. It doesn't discount the idea that another version of you, another aspect of your greater being, is still continuing to perceive itself from the idea of universe 812 or 813, while you are perceiving another aspect of yourself as universe 814. So it's all going on simultaneously. You're not leaving one place and going to another. That's just the way you experience it from a linear perspective.
And the bottom line is that basically the consciousness that you perceive as being you is always perceiving itself as being the only one, in a sense,
In a
because it's
sense,
looking through its own personality viewpoint.
yes,
Right.
remember the idea, taking it, so to speak, all the way up the ladder, is the concept that many humans have of blending with God, blending with Source, doesn't mean you lose your identity. It means you see yourself as Source. So the idea is that Source perceives itself as all possible realities, all possible universes simultaneously. So when you talk about the idea of quote unquote leaving one universe and going to another, that's not what's really happening. You're just broadening your perspective to see another aspect of yourself from a higher perspective, as from Source. So you understand that there is still going to be a part of you experiencing 813 while another part of you is experiencing 814. It's just that you can also choose to shift your focus or narrow your focus in a way that makes it seem as if you have shifted from one universe to another. But you're
And that,
existing in all of them simultaneously.
and that idea that circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters. That remaining focused on that idea, regardless of what reality you're experiencing, is the ticket to being able to shift to a more preferred physical experience.
Yes, in a sense, that's an offshoot of what we're talking about, but not directly involved in what we were just explaining.
Okay. Now this is maybe the same thing. I don't know if you want to expand based on this, but the question is, considering the concept of infinite realities and the billions of frames we experience every second, is it accurate to say that within each person's view of one of those frames, there are infinite possible variations, each representing a different reality? Also, if infinite versions of those frames exist, does this imply that there are endless viewpoints for each frame from everything in existence? Or does it mean that there are infinite frames in relation to my own perspective, or perhaps an infinite multiplication of perspectives based on each individual's viewpoint?
Every single viewpoint, every single change is an entirely different frame. So when you say, can one frame have multiple perspectives? No. Another perspective is a different frame. So it's an infinite number of frames. Now, an infinite number of frames may not be relevant for any particular physical life. That could only involve a finite number of frames that are relevant for that life. It doesn't mean an infinite number of frames don't exist. It just may be that the majority of them are not relevant to the finite number that is relevant for that particular life. But in terms of the way that you have, quote unquote, framed that question, pun intended, the idea is to understand that any variation whatsoever, no matter how, quote unquote, small, is a completely different frame. So it's not that one frame has multiple perspectives. Another perspective is another frame.